So it would be in the beginning the gods created the heavens and the earth. Well, who are the gods, and what are you talking about? And then when it talks about how the human race was created, Adam and Eve, it says that the gods said, "Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Well, who's us and our? And so when you start breaking this stuff down and finding out what the words mean, you find out that the Bible doesn't say God created man. I remember Rabbi Marvin Antelman back in the late 60s, and I used to sit and talk for hours, and he was in Newton, Massachusetts. And I asked him about this, and he said, well, nowhere does it say that God made man, expressly that God made man. What it's actually saying in the Bible is that someone has recreated us. Adam and Eve were not the first humans on the earth. Even in the old Jewish system of theology, that was understood, because Adam and Eve represented a remaking of the creature man. And so he says, so when you read Genesis 1:28, it doesn't say God created man. It says, "Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Not let us make man. He's already here, but let us make man in our image. Let us intervene in his natural evolution. Let us put some of our DNA into him. And let us make man now in our image, after our likeness. And then later on it says in the Bible, now man has become as one of us, knowing good and evil. And now man is doing things like us, like we do. Even in Islam, all through the Quran, when God is talking to man, it's we. We have told you this, we have done that, we have said this, we have done. All through the Quran is we. And nobody seems to question, it never even occurred to anybody to question, what is God we? Unless, of course, you go back to the original word Elohim, which is plural, more than one. Now, on this subject, I would like to also say that when we hear that the Jews or the Hebrews were the first monotheistic religion, that is totally incorrect. Anyone who has studied history knows better than that. The Hebrews were not, and still today are not, a monotheistic religion. It's a trick. Now, here's the way the trick is played. We in Christianity thinks that they have the worship of one God. But we are told in Christianity and Judaism that they are worshipers of one God. No, it is not monotheistic. Look up the word. It's H-E-N-O. H-E-N-O. Henotheistic. Henotheistic. Both Christians and Jews are henotheistic, not monotheistic, which means, and henotheistic means to pick one out of many. So the idea being is that there are many gods, but you picked one out of the many. And so therefore you are the worshipers of one God, but there was a whole bunch of them there, but you were the worshiper of one God. And so when Christians think of God as one almighty, divine, all-encompassing divine spirit over the whole universe, that's a misconception. There's a misconception and a misunderstanding of the words in the Bible. Actually, the Hebrews and Christians are henotheistic, meaning that they have picked one God out of many. And Yahweh was the one God out of the many gods. As a matter of fact, in our English language, when you use the word God, you can trace that back to a Latin word for God was Dios.
Dios, right.
And Dios, yes, and Dios, the Latin dictionary will tell you, comes directly from a Greek god named Zeus.
Huh.
So translating Zeus from Greek into Latin is Dios, and Dios into English is God. So when Christians and Jews are talking about God, they're talking about Zeus.
One of them, which is one of the gods.
One of the gods.
Huh.
That's one. But there are other gods.
Right.
And so, therefore, you are a worshiper of one God. Yeah, but there were 10 others you didn't worship.
What you're saying is what Zechariah Sitchin says, that the Anunnaki came here and altered our DNA. In other words, we were not created. We were here. There was a race of us. Perhaps you can call it the Neanderthals if you'd like. But they came here. They improved, if you will, our DNA, tinkered with it so that we could become Homo sapiens, who we are today. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's what I totally believe.
Okay.
Because I have heard way too many intelligent writers, authors, researchers, lecturers, and teachers around the world in both theology, philosophy, religion, and government, and they're all saying this behind the scenes, that they believe that we are nothing more than somebody else's experiment. And when you go out and look at the stars at night, you need to understand there's life out there that's been out there a long time before this earth was ever created, and somebody owns us, and consequently somebody can control us if they own us. They're smarter than we are. We look like them. So when I hear people, just ordinary people, saying that they were abducted, and in their abductions by aliens, they were confronted by men that look like us, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that's possible, because the Bible says we are made in their image and likeness.
Right.
So we look like them. No. They say, well, they look like us. No.
We look like them. Right.
Correctly, because they are the ones who created you. And that's why I was in business with Zechariah Sitchin for quite a few years, and so I had an opportunity to travel with him and talk with him extensively. And there's just an awful lot of proof, not only just in the Sumerian, but all over the world. The Egyptians and the Babylonians and all the ancient peoples of the world, even including the Native Americans, have their stories about the star people who came here and created us. And another thing in relation to that subject is I don't think the moon is indigenous to our solar system.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah. I'm sure that it was brought here. And I've sat and talked with scientists and physicists from NASA. And I have some very close personal friends who are top-of-the-line physicists at NASA. And they're telling me off the cuff that the moon is obviously not from our solar system to start with. Second, it was probably towed here. Third, it's most likely, because of all the science around the moon, once you start studying it like they do, that the moon is hollow, and that all the planets in our solar system are probably hollow at the core. Not hollow like the hollow Earth theory, but at the core would be hollow. Because of the science and the physics of how the planets react to each other, they would have to be hollow at the core. And so the moon is most likely hollow, and it may have a metal superstructure, so that it's an artificial structure that's been towed here. And there's a lot of good reasons to think that might be true, because I've talked to Native Americans from the Lakota tribe and from the different tribes that I've been involved with, and they're telling me that in their philosophy, the Native Americans believed that there was a time when there was no moon, and that the moon was brought here by our creators. And I thought, when I was hearing this, well, I've heard this before, but I heard it from NASA. And so I think there may very, very well be something to that, because the moon is an exact size that it has to be where it is. Because if it was any closer, it would crash into the Earth. If it was any further, it would drift off in its own orbit and be gone. And on a total eclipse, it's the exact perfect size to move in front of the sun for us to have a total eclipse of the sun. And I've sat with Richard Hoagland for hours in private dinners and talked with him and other scientists about why the moon is here. And come to find out, I'd never heard this, but the moon is required for human life to exist. It balances out electrically or some kind of a way our biological presence on the Earth, and that we really could not be here if it were not for the moon, because the moon does something for us humans and probably for other life forms. And so it was brought here when somebody was planning on creating us.